Hey guys, I'm Amber and this is Luna. Luna is a 2006 T1N Sprinter, so the OG of Sprinters, but I would love to show her off to you. Come on in. Well, I've been in vans for 3 years now, this van for a year. The transition from going to a house into a van honestly wasn't that hard for me. I've been living nomadically for about 10 years now, so it was kind of natural for me moving into a van, and honestly I was kind of upsizing from the backpack that I was living out of, and I built this one out on the BLM land in Sedona. So this van was actually built 100% off-grid. And I built it out in about three and a half weeks. I wasn't working at the time, so I was basically just sun up to sundown building out this van, and yeah, I love it. I wouldn't trade living in a van for the world. I've been doing it for 3 years and have no plans of stopping anytime soon. So this is the cab area right here. One thing that I did not have with my last van that I really wanted in this van was the swivel seats, because otherwise you're basically losing the 4 feet that are up there. And then I also have a bench seat right here as well. There's this bistro table right here, so I can actually have 3 people in here eating. And then I also have this that lifts up, and this is both a counter extension and also an extra table, so that this seat can then slide forward and I can have 3 people in here sitting down and eating. This right here, like I said before, it is 1 seating for people, but it also doubles as a toilet, which is super nice. So basically this is a composting toilet that I made. It pretty much consists of, it's a specialized seat that I got. It's called a separate, and what it does is it separates the liquid and the solid waste. The solid waste goes into a compost bucket that I use cocoa coir for, and then I basically just like churn it and it composts itself, and then the liquid just goes into a separate container that I then just empty at like a rest stop or a public toilet or something like that. And then the cool thing about the composting is that I can go probably like, I think I clean it maybe once every like 2, maybe 3 months, and you don't notice it at all. There's no smell, there's no odor. It completely composts itself, which is super cool and very environmentally friendly instead of flushing the toilet 20 times a day. Both of the windows that I have in the van, right here and over there in the door, I actually installed myself, and I'm all about the natural light. I want to be able to get as much light in here as possible and be able to get a cross breeze as well for on nice days like today. And my favorite part is that the screen also opens. So if I ever want to turn this into a food truck, I could just serve some food out of here, not the huge door right there, the small window, definitely. These cupboards I actually did not make. I bought them pre-made from Home Depot, and I kind of bought them and then completely destroyed them and then rebuilt them because I had to be able to fit like the curve of the van, the corners of it. So I basically cut the entire corner off of the back of the cupboard and then reinforced it with a bunch of plywood. And then I used self-tappers and actually just screwed them directly into the ribs of the van on the ceiling. It's really nice being able to have this much storage. It goes the entire width of the length of the van. In this one, I have a lot of my cooking supplies. I have my cast iron. I have a ton of plates and bowls just so I can host people in here and be able to cook for people, because I love doing that. I have my ukulele, and then I have supplies for making jewelry because I also have my own jewelry making business. So this is my bed. So it is a full-size 6-inch memory foam mattress, so it's super comfortable. The only downfall about the memory foam is that when it gets cold outside, it basically turns into a fat brick, and it's super hard, and it's super hard to warm it back up. So you get in bed and you're like cold, and then you basically just lay on a brick. So this is my kitchen sink area, all of that fun stuff. One thing I knew I wanted with this van was to be able to have a stove actually built into it. With my last van, I had I think it was like a single burner Coleman or something that I would have to take out, cook, clean, put away. So this one, it was definitely a necessity to have the built-in stove in here. So it's basically just a 2-burner propane stove, and I have a propane tank underneath there. I think I have like 10 pounds or something. So I've honestly only refilled the propane once, and I've been in this van for a year, so it's pretty efficient. And then over here we have my sink area. So this is actually a bathroom sink. I bought it from a woman in Texas whose mother hand paints them down in Mexico. This is just a brass faucet. It's a drinking faucet that I got on, I think it was like Etsy or something. And I have it wired up to a 12-volt pump, which pulls the water from underneath here up to there. And it's hooked up to a toggle switch right here. So I basically just flip that switch and the water comes out. This is all of my silverware. Ideally, I wanted to put drawers in the van, but because it was such a time crunch for building the van, I ran out of time and I couldn't put drawers in it, so I opted to just get this magnetic strip. And I've been really impressed with how well everything actually sticks to it. Like, I go on some super bumpy roads and nothing ever comes off of there. Likewise, I also have a magnetic strip up here for all of my spices. These have fallen down a couple times on some of the gnarlier roads that I've been on. I go down roads that I probably shouldn't. But for the most part, it's held up really well and they stay on there, and it's nice to have all this variety right here. It's super easy for cooking, just to be able to like take it off, twist it, put it on. And then I also have more spices up here because you can never have enough spices when you're cooking. Oh, and then for cleaning my dishes, so when I first moved into a van, I noticed that I was going through a bunch of water between me and my dog. My dog's like a 75-pound dog, so he drinks a lot of water. So I was trying to find a way to be more efficient with my water usage and not have to fill up so much. And a friend actually told me about this concoction. So it's basically half vinegar, half water, and then I put orange peels and rosemary inside of it just to make it smell good so it doesn't smell like vinegar. And then I just spray the dishes down, like sometimes I have to let them soak for a little bit, and then I wipe them off with my reusable towels up here because environmentalism. Down here is all of my storage. This is one of the messier parts of my van, and that's how it is. I don't even try to keep it organized. But down here I have my propane tank, I have one of my water containers, I have garbage, I have my dog's food, and just other miscellaneous stuff that I throw in there when I'm doing van tours and need to hide everything. So this is my fridge right here. It's called a Costway. It is a 12-volt fridge. It has 2 compartments in it. It has the fridge and the freezer, but the way that they set it up was really bizarre, where the fridge is like this big and the freezer is like this big. And living in a van, even before living in a van, I usually just don't really buy frozen stuff. I try to buy like fresh produce, like cook all of my own meals, so I actually converted the entire thing into just being a fridge. I don't love the top loader. With my last van, I had a front loading fridge where you could open it like a normal fridge, but they're a lot less efficient because all of the cold air goes out of it, where with this one, like, the heat rises obviously, so it's just a lot more efficient electrically. But yeah, so it basically just slides out and then it just opens up like a cooler. It's pretty sparse right now. I really need to go grocery shopping. So as far as electrical goes in the van, I have 200 watts of solar on the roof, and then I have a 100 amp hour lithium iron phosphate battery. And then I also have a 40 amp charge controller. It prevents the solar panels from getting too much power. It lets me know when I'm low on power. If I have a full battery, if I'm floating at like 14.3, I can probably go about 5 days without pulling anything in. But even on cloudy days, I pull in some solar too. So up here we have my Max Air fan. It is a 5-speed. And basically what happens is it can pull air in or it can blow the air out of my van. It's nice to be able to have that ventilation, especially when I'm cooking. I'll have air like pulling out of the van. The only bummer about this is that it's not great for insulation because the lid is basically just like a plastic lid that goes over it. So when I'm in places where it's kind of like cold, or if it's so windy that the wind is like coming in through the fan even when it's closed, I have this lovely thing that I ordered from a woman on Etsy. She makes them herself. And basically what this does is it just velcros up here, and then it just helps to like keep some of the heat in when I'm in cool places, and it also looks really cool, so there's that too. I would say about 60% of the supplies and materials I used in this van were actually secondhand or recycled. I am not great with woodworking or building things that are super complex, I guess, so I actually got these doors. Well, this one I pulled out of a garbage. So I literally dumpster dove for this one. And this one I got at Habitat for Humanity, which is a resale store that basically people donate extra like furniture or like building supplies when they're building things, and they donate it there, and then you can go and buy it for super cheap. I got this door, and this door for under $5. I wanted to be able to have my privacy in the van, so instead of doing the divider, I decided to opt for getting Reflectix to put in all the windows. So they all live up here. I have one for my side window, and then I had custom ones made actually for my front 2 windows, and then the windshield over here. And then this window over here obviously just has the curtain, so I just pull that shut at night. And when I have all the Reflectix and everything up, I can actually almost completely black the van out, which is insane. Like, very little light comes in here. So this is probably my favorite part about the van and the lights, is that they actually dim. So I can have like some mood lighting going on in here. I can turn it down when I want to have a movie night. I can turn it up when I need a little bit extra light. So the roof it's cedar, so it's really aromatic, especially on like hot days. You can actually smell it, and it smells amazing. But it's just basically, I think it's 1/4-inch tongue and groove panels that I bought and then just like snapped together. And as you can see, it is blue. Like I said, with this van, I wanted it to just be like colorful and fun to be in, fun to look at. First van I kind of built to test the waters of living in a van, and I wanted to be able to build it to resell it, so I wanted it to be like pretty neutral and have anyone be able to move into it. But this van was built 100% for me, so I did whatever the hell I wanted with it. I live in a van because it just felt right for where I was at in my life. I was born and raised in Minnesota, and after I graduated from high school, I started attending college and tried to do all the things that you're supposed to do: go to school, get a job, get married, have kids. But my whole life growing up, I was just like, I felt like I didn't really fit into that. And so I actually had a friend who bought a van, and he was kind of telling me about it, and I'm like, oh, that's cool, that's interesting, but I was just like, I couldn't do that, I don't know. There's a few different life things that happened that were just kind of telling me that I wasn't doing what I was supposed to be doing, and that I just like wasn't completely happy with where I was, even though I was doing everything that I was technically supposed to do. And casually one day I was just kind of like browsing Craigslist, looking at vans, looking at things, and I found my first van. And the second I saw it, I was just like, 100%, that's the van. I need it now. And within a week of finding this van on Craigslist, I flew down to Arizona where it was, bought it, and drove it back up to Minnesota. I still had my job. I had no idea what I was doing. I had never built anything in my life, and it was just this empty cargo van. And so I drove it back up, started watching all of the YouTube videos on building vans, all of the forums, and I built it out in a month again. So I have never spent longer than a month building out a van. But I built it out in a month in downtown Minneapolis on the side streets. It was chaotic and amazing, and I probably had like 10 different strangers help me build my first van, just like small things that I couldn't do, like, can you hold this and I'll screw this in. I would literally just like pluck people off of the sidewalk and ask them to help me with my van. But yeah, I live in a van because I love the freedom of it. I love being able to live by my own means, and I also love how small my footprint is doing this. I produce all of my own electricity. I go through extremely minimal water. So it feels aligned with my values in that sense. I'm an environmental science major, so I've always been super conscious of what I go through, and it just kind of made sense for me to live in a van, especially after backpacking. It was upgrading, if anything, to go from a backpack to living in the van. Like, I get my entire own space. Van life is not for the faint of heart. It is really challenging in a lot of different ways. It really forces you to sit with yourself, and it really forces you to kind of look inward. When I first hit the road, I was by myself for about 6 months, and I didn't know anybody else who lived in vans, and I was basically just Christopher McCandlessing and completely solo, like sitting with my own thoughts. But I think some of my biggest life revelations and just realizing like who I am, who I want to be, came from those 6 months that I was completely by myself, like out in the wilderness, just adjusting to living in a van, having to face everything that you've kind of been shoving down while you're working and just living your day-to-day life and not really taking time. That was kind of challenging for me. But other than that, it's just, there's smaller things like having to fill up my water like once a week, trying to find parking when I'm like in a city or something. Most of my time I spend on like BLM land, federal land, and camp places for free, but every once in a while, like now, I have to come to cities, and it can be a little bit stressful trying to find somewhere and not get kicked out at 2 o'clock in the morning, get the infamous knock of a cop telling me that I can't park here. But other than that, I mean, all of those things, the benefits far outweigh them. And obviously I'm still doing this after 3 years and still love it. I have no plans of stopping or quitting this anytime soon. So yeah, it comes with its challenges, but the benefits definitely outweigh them. I got my first van for $5,000, which was an absolute steal. It was also a Sprinter, so the fact that I found a Sprinter for $5,000 was insane. Probably spent about $12,000 on the build in my first van, so about $17,000 for the first one. And then when the market was super hot for vans, I actually sold my first van and bought this van, and I had 2 vans for a little bit while I was building out this one. And this van I also got for $5,000, and this one was a high roof. So yeah, I've lucked out and been searching Craigslist at the right times and found the right vans. And I was a lot more budget friendly with this van. Like I said, I got a lot of things that were either used or dug things out of dumpsters and put them in the van. So I would say I probably spent about, including electrical stuff, maybe $6,000. So about $11,000 to get in this van, which was definitely the way to do it. Something I wish I had known. It's a cult, basically, the community here. I met one van person, and then I met another van person. It was basically just like this evolutionary thing that happened where all of a sudden, like, I knew hundreds and hundreds of other van people, and especially now being on the road for almost 3 years, I have just met, honestly, probably in the thousands of van people, and I have a group of about 30 of us that kind of like caravan together on and off. So we'll like go places, we'll meet up, and then we'll kind of all like disperse and do our own thing. But especially in like the winter time, we all kind of congregate in the desert, either in like Arizona or California. Joshua Tree currently is where a lot of us are. I had no idea how big the community was and how amazing and powerful it is, because when you're camped with these people, it's like you're basically roommates slash neighbors, and it's like you open the door in the morning, it's like, good morning, Brian, like you walk, and yeah, it's a really powerful thing, and I wasn't at all expecting that. You know, I moved into a van not knowing anyone, not knowing anything, and then I found this amazing community that has just been so supportive and welcoming, and I've never really felt like part of a community before until I found these other humans who also choose to live in metal boxes too. But I do think that everyone should live in a van for at least a year, just to see like what it's like to go through all of the things that they do, like electricity and water. I mean, you have a faucet, like water comes out of it. You just blindly use it without even realizing how much you're using. And then electricity, like you have these walls and you just plug it in and you have no idea where the electricity comes from or how much you're using or any of those things. But yeah, I mean, I know people who are in IT, I know people who are in corporate America and they live in vans. I know like dirtbags like me who kind of just like barely scrape by and just do what they can just to survive and enjoy their lives. But yeah, I would definitely recommend van life to anyone, and yeah, anyone and anything that is interested in it. I think the most humbling thing, honestly, is not having a toilet. I mean, I have my toilet, but it's like I have to deal with that, you know? It's not just like you have a toilet, you go to the bathroom, you flush it, it's gone. You have to deal with it constantly. So I think that was the biggest thing. My first van, I had a toilet in, but I didn't really use it because I was scared of it for some reason. I don't know. I was just like, I'm going to go to the bathroom where I cook, and yeah. So I would say not having a toilet was one of the biggest kind of like slap in the faces, like, oh, by the way, you have to deal with your own feces now. Have fun. But yeah, other than that, I mean, like, people who live in vans are just regular, everyday people, and I feel like there has, up until recently, kind of been this, like, I don't know, shame about living in a vehicle or not living in a house and not living like that traditional lifestyle. So, and I do sometimes, especially when I'm in places like here, San Francisco, I do deal with people like looking at my van and being like, you can't park here, this is a nice neighborhood, there's families here. Like, I'm a good person, I'm normal, I promise. So yeah, kind of just like dealing with that scrutiny of people who don't understand this lifestyle because they either just aren't familiar with it or don't understand it or think that it's just a bunch of dirtbags who just freeload, which I guess that's kind of me, honestly. Not the freeloading part, but definitely a dirtbag. So yeah, you definitely have to be okay with like people not necessarily agreeing with your lifestyle, and I think that's probably one of the harshest realities of living in a van. My personal philosophy on life, you know, this is actually something I've been considering for a while, and I don't know if it's necessarily a philosophy, but I kind of teeter between these two ideas where we are one and we are nothing. And I kind of go back and forth between them, and I guess I'll kind of just dive into that and explain what I mean by that. But we are one, basically, we are all one species, we are all one being, and we are basically just like the universe experiencing itself. So obviously just like treat others with kindness and compassion, because I am you, you are me, like we are all just one universe. And then there's also we are nothing, and in that sense, I mean, we're how tiny we are in the grand scheme of like the universe and all the galaxies and everything. Nothing that we do actually even matters. We are a grain of sand, we're a drop of water in the ocean, and nothing that we do matters. But on the contrary, everything we do kind of has a ripple effect with like the people around us and our environment. So yeah, I guess my philosophy on life is just don't take anything too seriously and have fun and love everyone and be nice and be a good human. But 2 years ago, I actually got laid off from my job. I was working in Sedona, Arizona, and when COVID hit, I got laid off, and so I was just like, okay, what do I do now? Like, I need to do something. So I both went back to school to get my environmental science, my bachelor's degree in environmental science, and I also started my own jewelry business. So my jewelry business is called Nomadic By Nature, and the slogan for that is, it's handmade jewelry, crafted in my van, inspired by nature, and made with intention. And pretty much everything that I'm wearing right now, I made with my own hands. I mostly focus on like metalwork and beadwork. And yeah, I try to make everything 100% myself. So like I cut the metal, I saw the metal, I stamp the metal. I obviously do all the beadwork and everything. But I sell it all either on Etsy or in person. Etsy is probably the best way, just because when I do it in person, I'm just traveling around and like looking on an app, like what's going on here? Like, is there anything happening? And I just kind of find different shows going on in areas when I'm in them. But yeah, on Etsy, it's just Nomadic By Nature Goods is how you can find it. And then it's also linked in my Instagram. So you can find me on Instagram. I am aimless.amber is my personal account, and then Nomadic by Nature Goods is my business account.
If you enjoyed that and want to check out more alternative dwellings, we have a playlist popping up that is all the episodes that we've ever done. Thanks for watching. Hit subscribe. We'll see you on the next episode.